Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. It had been 10 years since Lena last saw Matthew. They had once worked in the same architectural firm. She, a junior designer fresh out of grad school, he, a rising project lead with a reputation for precision and charm. Lena remembered their long nights in the studio, drafting floor plans under buzzing fluorescent lights, fueled by takeout and subtle glances neither dared acknowledge. Nothing ever happened. She was dating Aaron, the man she would later marry. Matthew was engaged. Their connection had been all tension and timing, never acted upon, but never forgotten. Years passed. Lena married Aaron, moved to another firm, had 2 children, bought a house. She told herself she had everything she needed. And for a while, that felt true. But lately, something in her had started to fray. Aaron, once affectionate and attentive, had grown distant. Work consumed him. Their conversations became transactional, about bills, the kids' schedules, the broken dishwasher. The warmth they once shared cooled into something practical. Safe but hollow. Lena began waking up at 3 a.m. more often than not, her heart racing. She told her doctor it was anxiety. Her mother said it was hormones. But Lena knew it was something else. She missed being seen. Then came the conference. It was hosted in the city. An industry event she almost skipped until her boss insisted she attend. Lena didn't expect much from it. A few panels, some networking, and a few hours away from her phone. But as the elevator doors slid open on the 10th floor and she stepped in, she froze. Matthew. He looked older, his hair tinged with gray, his jaw a little sharper, his eyes still exactly the same. He blinked at her, stunned, then smiled slowly. Lena. She felt her breath hitch. Matthew. Wow. He pressed the button for the rooftop lounge, same as she had. And the doors closed. It should have been awkward. It WSN single quotes T. Within seconds. They were laughing, catching up like no time had passed. He hadn't married his fiancée, he said. Things fell apart. He'd been living in Paris the last few years, working on a major museum renovation. I always knew you'd end up in Europe, Lena said. And I always knew you'd still be in the game, he replied. You were too passionate to ever walk away from design. She smiled, then looked away. Passion feels like another life now. He tilted his head. Still married? She nodded. Yeah, 2 kids, 1 mortgage, a lot of dishes. And happiness? She hesitated. That's a more complicated answer. The elevator slowed. The moment stretched thin. And then the lights flickered and it jolted to a stop. Lena's breath caught. Okay. That's not ideal, she said, forcing a laugh. Matthew pressed the emergency button. Looks like we're stuck. Somewhere a voice crackled through. Sorry, folks, we've got a brief outage. Shouldn't be more than 10 minutes. The voice disappeared. Silence returned. Lena leaned against the mirrored wall, trying not to panic. But it wasn't the elevator that stole her breath. It was being this close to him. The air between them thrummed. You're still beautiful, Matthew said softly. She turned to him, eyes wide. You were then too. But you didn't see it. Lena swallowed hard. You shouldn't say that. Why? Because we're married. To people we're not in love with? The words hit her like a crack of thunder. She didn't answer. She couldn't. He stepped closer. Not touching her, not yet. Just near enough that she could feel the heat of him. You know, he murmured, for years I thought about you. Wondered if you ever thought about me. I tried not to, she whispered. But you did. She nodded, barely. He reached for her hand, gently. And for a moment, everything fell away. The noise, the guilt, the years. She let him hold it. Then the elevator whirred back to life, and the doors opened. They stepped out. The connection between them burning, they didn't sleep together. Not that night. But the betrayal had already begun, not with touch, but with truth. In the weeks that followed, they kept talking. At first, under the guise of professional follow-up. Then longer messages. Then late-night calls. Lena tried to convince herself it was just conversation. But at WSN single quotes T. Matthew saw her. The parts of her Aaron had long since stopped noticing. Her wild ideas, her quiet humor, her hunger for more. He reminded her who she had been before life became predictable. One night, after another dinner with Aaron where silence filled every space, she stepped outside, sat in the car, and called Matthew. "I can't stop thinking about you," she said. "I know," he replied. "I haven't stopped since the elevator." Tears welled in her eyes. "But I have a family. I don't want to break anything," he said gently. "But I want you to stop breaking yourself." That night, Lena didn't sleep. She made a decision. The next morning, she asked Aaron to talk. And she told him everything, not the affair, because there hadn't been one. But the truth, that she was lonely, that she felt unseen, that she'd found someone who reminded her what being alive felt like. Aaron was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Is this someone you're going to leave me for?" "No," she sighed. "I don't know. I'm not asking to leave. I'm asking if we can be honest." And so they were. Therapy came next. Long, uncomfortable conversations, fights, tears, then moments of tenderness. Aaron admitted he'd been hiding behind work because he was afraid of being inadequate, afraid she didn't love him anymore. Lena admitted she hadn't known what she needed until she almost lost herself in someone else. They began rebuilding, slowly, carefully. Not as the people they had been, but as the ones they were now. Matthew and Lena spoke once more. She told him thank you for reminding her she was still capable of feeling deeply, of being seen. "I meant every word," he told her. "But I'm glad you chose to fight for your life." So she did, and years later, when she stood on a balcony watching the sun rise beside Aaron, holding his hand, laughing at a joke only he could make, she thought of that elevator, not as a mistake, but as a moment that gave her the breath to begin again. They fought often in the beginning. About the things they didn't say for years, about the dreams they had abandoned quietly for the sake of structure and comfort, about the parts of themselves that had changed and the resentments that had silently grown like cracks beneath their foundation. But they also began sharing again, not just updates about the children or work, logistics, but fears, stories, touches that lingered just a second longer. Aaron, who had always kept his emotions tightly wound, started therapy alone, then invited her to join. It wasn't perfect. Some nights, Lena still found herself scrolling through old messages from Matthew, reading the lines that had once made her pulse race. Sometimes she wondered what might have happened if she had gotten off that elevator and followed him out into the night instead of back to her hotel room, but she never reached out again. That chapter had closed with dignity, and she wanted to preserve that. Matthew was the mirror, the one that showed her what she was missing. But it was up to her to figure out if what she had could be saved, or if she truly needed something new. And slowly, surprisingly, she and Aaron began falling for each other again. Not the heady, cinematic kind of falling, but something steadier, grounded, real. He noticed her again. The way she hummed when she made coffee. The way she lit up when talking about her design work. The subtle tilt of her head when she was thinking deeply. He started writing her notes. Again, short ones, sometimes just a line. "I saw you today, and I'm sorry I didn't see you for so long." They took a weekend trip, just the two of them, to a lakeside cabin. The kids stayed with Lena's sister. It was their first time alone in nearly 5 years. The first night, they sat by the fire drinking wine, unsure how to be alone together. But eventually, she reached for his hand, and he didn't let go. They made love that night, unhurried, tender, with the kind of vulnerability that comes not from novelty, but from deep familiarity, reawakened. Lena cried afterward, quietly, not out of sadness, but because she hadn't realized how much of herself she had locked away. Aaron kissed her forehead and held her as if he knew, because he did. They came home from that trip different. Still imperfect, but more honest, more present. The children noticed. So did her friends. Lena began smiling more. She wore color again. She started working on a design project she'd shelved for years, a community arts center. Aaron offered to help her draft the business plan. One day, as they stood reviewing blueprints at the kitchen table, Lena looked at him, really looked, and saw not just her husband, but her partner again. She smiled, and this time, it wasn't out of nostalgia or politeness. It was real. A year later, they renewed their vows in their backyard, just them and the kids. No grand declarations, just words whispered under fairy lights, their fingers interlaced. And when Aaron said, "I promise to keep choosing you," Lena whispered back, "Even when it's hard, I'll be here." After everyone had gone inside, Aaron pulled her close. "Do you ever think about him?" He asked, not with bitterness, but with quiet curiosity. She nodded. "Sometimes. But not the way I used to. How do you think about him now?" She leaned into his chest, listening to his heartbeat, as a reminder that I needed to break open, to find my way back to where I belong. Aaron didn't say anything. He just held her tighter. And in that moment, Lena knew the life she had rebuilt wasn't just a repaired version of the old. It was a new one entirely, built not on perfect choices, but on truth. Built with love, the kind that survives the storm. Not because it was never shaken, but because both people chose to stay when it would have been easier to leave. Spring bloomed with a kind of hope Lena hadn't felt in years. Their backyard was scattered with tulips and dandelions, and on Sunday mornings she and Aaron began sitting outside with coffee in hand, wrapped in light sweaters, just listening to the quiet before the kids woke up. She found herself reaching for his hand without thinking. He began kissing her shoulder when he passed behind her while she worked at the dining table. The space between them softened, but healing wasn't linear. There were nights where she'd still lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how close she had come to walking away. Sometimes she wondered if she had ever truly been in love with Aaron, or if they had both just clung to something that had made sense when the world was still new and full of possibilities. And there are moments, rare but piercing, when she'd think of Matthew and feel something flicker. Not longing, not desire, but a strange sort of grief for the version of herself that had almost chosen him, for the life that would have looked so different. One rainy Tuesday, months after the elevator, Lena found herself walking past a small gallery near the city's design district. She stopped in, drawn by the curve of wood and glass in the front installation. A woman in her 60s with bright white hair welcomed her with a warm smile. "Architecture?" she asked, gesturing to Lena's captivated gaze. "Yeah, kind of." "My first language," Lena replied, smiling. The woman, whose name was Colette, ended up inviting her to an informal creative gathering they hosted monthly. Designers, artists, architects. People who still believe in building things that matter. Lena went, then again, and again. It wasn't just about creativity, it was about identity. Lena remembered who she had been before kids, before routine smoothed her edges. She started sketching again, not for clients. For herself, Aaron noticed, "You look like you did when I first met you," he said one night as she showed him a charcoal draft of a building concept she had dreamed up that morning. "Older?" She joked. "No, hungry, alive." He meant it, and it made her throat catch. Their connection deepened not through perfect moments, but through vulnerable ones. He asked her questions now, about her thoughts, her work, her fears, and she started asking him more too. One night over wine, she asked him, "Did you ever come close to someone else the way I did?" Aaron hesitated. "There was someone at work years ago. Nothing happened. But sometimes I wanted it to. Why didn't you?" He looked her in the eyes. "Because I loved you. But I think I forgot how to show it." She nodded. "I think I forgot how to feel it." He reached for her hand across the table. We're remembering now. That summer, they went on their first real vacation in years, a beach town with winding alleys, local bakeries, and no cell reception. One night, after the kids fell asleep, they walked along the shoreline, barefoot, the moonlight flickering across the water. I think about how close we came to ending, Lena said softly. Erin squeezed her hand. I think about how close. We came to never beginning again. She stopped and turned to face him. I love you, she said, not out of obligation, but with the kind of clarity that made her heart thrum. His eyes glistened. I love you too. Even more now because I know what it cost to stay. They kissed long, slow, full of memory and hope. And under the stars, they made love like two people who had chosen each other not for what they had been, but for everything they still could be. Years later, Lena would tell the story of her marriage not as a straight line, but as a series of curves, bends that nearly broke them, detours that led to deeper truths. Sometimes when she passed the building where the elevator once trapped her and Matthew, she didn't look away. She looked up, not with shame, but with gratitude, not because she regretted nothing, but because from that moment, she built something better, not perfect, but real and real. She learned was the most beautiful thing of all. The house was quiet. The kids were at their grandparents' for the weekend. The first time in months, Lena and Aaron had been truly alone. The silence felt unfamiliar. Not uncomfortable, just full of possibility. Aaron emerged from the hallway, barefoot, holding 2 glasses of wine. She was sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by sketchbooks, flipping through old ideas she hadn't touched in years. You know, he said, handing her a glass, every time I see you like this, sketching, creating, it's like I'm meeting you again. She smiled. I think I've been meeting myself again, too. He sat behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. Can I tell you something? Anything. I was scared we'd never find our way back, that I'd lost you for good. She turned her head. Their eyes met. I almost lost myself. He kissed her shoulder. I see you now. I think I always loved you, but I didn't know how to love all of you, not the restless parts, not the wild, hungry ones. Her breath caught. That's the part. I was hiding. I don't want you to hide anymore, he whispered. Not from me. She turned in his arms slowly and touched his face. I want to be seen, completely loved for the woman I am now, not just the girl you married. Aaron kissed her then, not out of habit, but from the deepest part of him. It was a kiss that knew silence, sorrow, near endings, and chose love anyway. She melted into him. His hands moved over her like he was learning her all over again, every curve, every freckle, every breath. Clothes were removed slowly, reverently, as if time didn't matter. As if they had all night, and they did. They made love on the living room floor. Not rushed, not routine, but full of rediscovery, of reverence, of ache and softness and shared rhythm. Her fingers curled against his back. His lips traced the edge of her jaw, her neck, her soul. Afterward, they lay tangled on the rug, wrapped in a throw blanket, the fire casting shadows on the walls. I've never felt so close to you, she whispered. Aaron brushed hair from her face. This feels like falling in love again. But deeper, truer, she smiled, tears pricking her eyes. Maybe we didn't get it perfect the first time, but I think we're finally learning how. He pulled her closer. I don't want perfect. I just want us. The night stretched on, long and quiet and wrapped in warmth. In the morning, she woke with his arms around her and sunlight spilling across their skin. And for the first time in years, Lena didn't feel like she had to chase happiness. She was already home.